Yeah, hi, welcome to another session of a Selenium WebDriver. In today's session, we're going to discuss about different type of elements and their parent-child relationship, and also the siblings, and how do we traverse forward and how do we traverse back. So these are very important because not every element will provide you the information based on which you will able to identify it. Okay, there may be some weird elements which may not have anything on their own, you know. They'll be like an orphan element. So there's like, hey, I exist, but I can't help you to identify me. You know? So in that case, what we need to do is we need to take help of their neighbors. I mean to say neighbors is like either its parent or its sibling or anything which can help us to give some context. Okay. So that is a technique with which we'll able to identify that orphan element. Rather than saying orphan element, an element who doesn't have any useful information on its own, so that we can identify it directly using any of the locator techniques we have discussed so far. Okay. So let's try to understand this HTML. So I'm just highlighting one example in front of you. Whenever do you F12 on any element, you must have observed this kind of structure, right? So let's say this is the structure, and this is specifically on Chrome. On a Firefox, you may see a little bit different notations or a different icon with which they show. Even if you use previous versions of Chrome, you may not see these arrows, but you may see these plus minus icons, Anyway, whatever it is, but the parent-child elements, as name indicates, is you need to understand that which element is under which element, because sometimes the element structure will be so nested and so close to each other that it's going to be difficult for you to understand or difficult for you to locate just with your naked eyes. You may need to zoom it, or you may need to go closer to your screen just to understand its structure. That's why I'm giving you simple notation that this arrow down and arrow like this, whichever is arrow down, that is the parent. Okay, let me go back. Whichever is arrow down, right, which means it is the arrow down indicates that it is expanded. Okay, so this exactly, so this is the parent, right, and this is the element. We didn't expand this element, which means whatever you see input, right, this is not the child of this. Okay, we shouldn't get confused with this. So this is not expanded. If you carefully observe, this element is not expanded, which means when I expand this element, I may have a whole new different structure, right, which will be inside this element. So that's why I want to identify, highlight specifically that this element is not expanded, which means this tag may not be necessarily a child of this. Okay. Second thing, now this element is a child of this element. Okay. And now this is the parent of this div element with its ID card container, and this is the parent username container, and this is the child of this element, which is username group, right? This is the parent. And now whose parent? This is the child of the forms tag, right? Form tag name, this is the parent, and his parent is div ID login form, right? So this is how the parent child structure we need to understand. Why this is important? Because the next section where we're gonna learn absolute XPath and the relative XPath, this is important. The structure, I think it's not that difficult, but sometimes it gets weird. Sometimes when you work with so many nested elements, it may get weird, and that's why it is important to understand these small tricks: arrow up, arrow down. Okay, let's understand the next important chapter, which is XPath types. So far we have understood that XPath basically or technically XPath is a kind of a language to traverse on the XML, so that, and whatever notations we give, whatever XPath we are writing, is basically we are telling that, hey, can you please try to identify this element on your XML using this particular match. Okay, so there are multiple ways with which we can write an XPath. That's what we were learning. Now two major path types which here we need to understand is relative XPath and absolute XPath. This is also important interview questions. You may be asked that, can you explain me the relative XPath and absolute XPath, and what's the difference between them? Which one is fast? Which one would you prefer? In what scenario, right? These kind of practical questions you may expect during an interview. Now let's go through first one, which is a relative XPath. So the XPath which starts from the node of your choice, and then relative to that node, it goes ahead. Okay. So, or I mean to say in another simple language, the XPath which targets a specific node itself, and which doesn't start from its parent, like from the top HTML parent, top node. So if you observe, so far whatever we were writing, the tag name ID equal to something star, what we were doing, we were not traversing right from the first element in an HTML, from HTML body and all those things, right? You remember? We were not traversing right from the first node. Exactly. We were directly jumping on one element, right? So that is called as a relative XPath. So far whatever the different syntax we were writing, and whatever most of the when you right click on your element in the Chrome browser, and when you copy, what you get is a relative XPath, right? So relative XPath is the one which starts from the node of your choice, or from the tag, or from the element of your choice, and then related to that node it goes ahead. So in this example, if you see, so let's forget about this /ul and li. If you only write till this is also an XPath, right? Where I'm trying to identify a login, let's say something called as login tag, right? But now if I want to travel ahead from this tag, so what I will do, /ul /li of third index and then a, so basically I'm going relative to this node, or relative to this particular element. So I'm saying to WebDriver, hey WebDriver, can you first identify this element, and then once you identify this element, just go couple of steps ahead, go to its next child, go to its next child, and go to its next child, something like that. So this type of XPath is your relative XPath. Okay. Now the absolute XPath, by now you would have understood that absolute XPath is a complete path from the root element to the desired element, right? What is a root element? When you write an HTML, you always start with HTML tag, right? And then you write head tag and body tag, and then in between head tag or in between body tag, you go ahead and start doing your different elements, correct? So the absolute XPath is something which starts from the root element, which means the first element on the HTML document, which will always be an HTML, right? So it starts with HTML, then body, then div 5, div 2. What is this div 5, div 2? We're gonna learn today, don't worry. And then it traverses and it goes till the desired element. So you can understand that this particular absolute XPath is basically giving an instruction to WebDriver that don't directly jump on any element like this, but starts with the root element and then traverse the particular path which I'm asking you to do, right? Now this is the complete XPath, you can also say, okay, or a bigger XPath which starts from the top, or which starts from the root element. This is the two examples I pasted it here. You can identify an element using both of these technique. There is nothing wrong. Okay. You can either use a relative XPath, or you can also use absolute XPath. But this type of questions sometimes people ask in an interview, that why we should be using a relative XPath and not an absolute XPath, right? So the good answer for this is, of course, the first one is the absolute XPaths may be a big XPaths which we may not able to understand, or we may not able to maintain or whatever. But the correct answer for this is they are very fragile, because if anything happens in that path, if the developer introduce a new element, or if developer do any restructuring of an HTML, then your XPath may break, right? Then they have a lot of stuff like exactly. Exactly. So if you write a full XPath or an absolute XPath, the probability of it is getting the probability of it's not working after some days is more, because if you introduce any change which is affecting that complete XPath, then you will get no such element found exception, right? So that's why absolute XPaths are not recommended or not very much used. But there will be some cases where you are intentionally want to use an absolute XPath, okay, which basically means that, hey, I want to test that my structure is not getting disturbed, There will be some very limited needs where you may wanna use it, but in most of the times you will be using a relative XPaths. Okay. Now this is the one simple comparison which I kept it absolute and a relative XPath. The absolute XPath, so basically the complete path which starts with the root element, nothing but HTML tag, right? Whereas the relative XPath is it can start from any tag and can traverse from there, right? That's the one. Now what is the difference between both of them? It's pretty, of course, obvious. And then this is the example: HTML body, div, date, this, and then in a relative XPath we target a specific element, and from that element, relative to that element, you either go ahead or you either go back. Okay, you can do either, whatever you want. What is the difference? Now this is a kind of a a small difference, but easy to understand, that it starts with a single slash. If you see this single // the absolute XPath, whereas in a relative XPath we start with a double //. Okay, that's the one thing to observe. As I said, it is not recommended because it may be fragile, it may break if there is any slight change between the element structure. The relative XPath is something which is we are recommending. Okay. Okay, so coming back to the browser way to get XPath. Now, if you understood, you have two different copy XPath, right? The normal one which we recommend to use is the copy XPath. Now you understood that is nothing but which gives you the relative XPath, right? And you do have a copy full XPath. Now that copy full XPath is nothing but an absolute XPath, which gives you right from the root element, correct? So those are the two different options you will see in the Chrome. Now you know what those two different options are and what kind of XPaths or what type of XPaths you will be getting when you select those options, right? Okay, so let me quickly jump on our Chrome, and then what we're gonna do, we're gonna create one class, and I will say relative absolute XPaths. Finish, and then let me copy this. Okay. Okay, so I'm not gonna write a code, but we're just gonna see one simple example and then we'll go ahead. So let me go to our favorite website, which is facebook.com. Okay, I wanna show you from Chrome and Firefox both, but let's go to this one. Yeah, so here you see this is the parent child, right, which we were discussing about. And now here, if you right click, go to copy. Now here you only have XPath, you don't have that full XPath option, whereas in Chrome you get that option, right? No, Firefox is gonna, whatever XPath the Firefox is giving is a relative XPath, correct? Now let me open Chrome, and then let's go to salesforce.com, and then let's go to contact us, and then here if I want to enter something, right click, inspect. Okay, now you see, and now if I go to right click, here you see copy XPath and copy full XPath, right? So what I'll do copy XPath for this one. Let me remove this. Let me save. See, this is the absolute XPath or relative XPath. What it is? This is relative, exactly. And then if I do right click on a same element, and if I go copy full XPath, now the same element. See, this is such a big one, right? because it starts from the HTML and then it goes till it finds that input tag. You see this? So this is why, yeah, exactly. So that's why we do not recommend using this kind of. And one more thing you need to understand. Let me go to a same URL in the Firefox. You may or may not get a same XPath when we use different browsers. You know, yeah. So that's also I wanna make you show you one example. So let's say if I'm inspecting this first name, right? The same thing we did it in a Chrome. Now in this first name, I'll try to copy XPath. So right click, copy and XPath, right? Go back here. Now this is the one which is given by Chrome, right? For the same element. Now, okay. No, I think they are different. Oh yeah, they are different. Maybe because the ID is dynamic here. That's what it looks like, right? That's what it looks like. The ID may be dynamic. Let me refresh this page. That's it's a good example. Okay, so let's try to go to inspect element. Yeah, you see this? Now this time the ID is SN1B, right? So the ID is dynamic. Now in such case, what type of XPath you will use? You can always use name, you know, because you know the name, or you can use, there are different types which you can use. And what are those? Do you remember the contains which we discussed yesterday? Right? Right? So yeah, using contains, using this, you can use it. And here you just need to provide that particular text. Oh, sorry, this is an input field, right? Oh, this is an input field. So you can provide a name if that works for us, or maybe we can use a CSS, or maybe we can use contains like this, right? @ attribute and value. Yeah, so this one will help us. So if I try to write it in this way, how, because I know now that ID is dynamic, so how I'll write a tag name is, I think, input. Is that right? Yes, right. So here my XPath will be input. This is how you can practice. Okay, just copy the syntax and then you just go and try replacing it, so that you will become expert like this. That's it, right? You no need to worry about that because this portion is not working, or this exactly. So let's quickly try this. Okay, let me, because on a same example we're gonna see driver, sorry, parent and child also. So find element by dot XPath double quotes, provide your XPath, and then what I'm gonna say, dot send keys, and then I'll say testing dynamic ID. Okay, and then let me directly jump on this particular URL. Yeah, I think we can stick with this one. It has a lot different combinations, right? Yeah, let's take that as an example now. Okay, so let's see whether this is gonna work. Okay. Page is still loading. Okay, it didn't work. Let's see what's the problem. What is the given XPath expression is invalid, and why is so? Let's go back. Let's check. I don't think it is invalid. Double quotes. Oh, see this one? Yeah, it doesn't like some fancy things. Okay, so let's try with this. Okay, the commas must be the offender. Okay, you can see it entered, right? So those comma was the problem. Okay, now the next important thing I want you cover is let me go back. Okay, so till this we are good. Copy XPath, relative and absolute, right? The next thing is we want to understand how do we traverse ahead and traverse back. Like I was saying, you may find some elements which may not expose any attribute values, or which may not give you any concrete information based on which we will try to identify them, right? Like they'll be very dynamic. So here in this example, assume that you have this parent and you have three different childs of that parent. Okay, child 1, child 2 and child 3, and the parent and this particular child is dynamic, which means they have very dynamic id, dynamic name. There is no information exposed with which we can identify this particular element. Okay, so now the question is, or the let's say an interview question or a problem we need to solve here is, we need in above scenario write an XPath to identify this particular element, the one which is highlighted. Okay, now I'm saying if this particular element is dynamic and no proper way to identify them, then we need to find some solution. Either we need to identify this element and then traverse, right? Or we need to find this element or then traverse two nodes, or we need to find a way uh, to identify a parent and then traverse three nodes, down, something like that. So here, because the parent is also dynamic, we can't identify parent directly. Now we'll have to first, in such examples or in such complex scenario, you need to carefully study the pattern, or you need to carefully look into the structure of your element and try to find out that one element with which you can at least reach there. Your first motive should be, which is this element, either child or parent. So basically these are siblings. Okay, in our example, or in our technical language, now we will name them as siblings of each other. Element and element, they are sibling of each other, but they are child to this parent, right? They may have their own childs as well, but here in this case we do not have, but yes, they are siblings. Now here, if you carefully observe the syntax which I trying to explain here, is first we will try to identify this element, because this element seems to be static, or this has some values, or this has some information. So we'll try to write a XPath just to identify this element first, which we have already learned in our previous session, right? How do we identify this element? You can do that using any of the techniques, either id, name, link, or whatever, contains, text, or css, or whatever you want. Okay, sorry, not css, only XPath. So once you identify this element, then what you should do is forward slash, you need to write this keyword, the one we highlighted in the red, following slash siblings, and then double colon. Okay, this is the syntax. Okay, then you have to say following siblings, and then give the tag name of that particular element which you are trying to identify, right? And give the index of it. Give the index of that. So basically, there's the second element starting from this. So relative to this element, it is 1 and 2, right? So relative to this element, it is on the second position. That's why we are saying, okay, once you identify this element, then follow its siblings and then go to the second index, right? So with this, we'll try to identify. Now let's go and try to use this particular. You can say that, yeah, it will count himself as 0, right? And then from there it will go, it will traverse ahead, right? So now let me just for your information, I'll try to paste it here as syntax, and then here I'll say syntax to traverse ahead. Okay, now let's try to take an example. So here in this case, let me close this. No thanks. Okay, so in this case, let's try to see if we can get any parent child. So let me, so this is the one div, and I'm trying to get multiple, a parent and multiple child. So okay, so let's see. Oh, links on the right, this one. Let's see. We can try this. We can try this. So see, if you see this, right? Okay, we can try this. Let's see. Okay, so if you see, this particular element contains both of those links, right? This is the first one and this is the second one, right? They are the child of this particular parent, right? This parent, ideally speaking, doesn't have any such information. If you see, it has a class, but it has a space, so probably we may not want to use this, right? And apart from a class, it doesn't have anything, right? So this particular parent. No, this is the XPath example to traverse ahead. So here the parent doesn't have much information. If I want to identify, let's say this particular link, right? This particular link, and then this particular link has text, but now which I should be taking a reference. So there is a one way, this is not a good example, but I would say let's try to identify this first. Okay, this I'll try to identify this particular element, and from this element I'll traverse ahead, right? Or maybe let's try a different example. How about let's try this one itself. Let me see. This is the first name. It has a this okay. So further down on the page. So if you see this div has two childs, child 1 and child 2, right? And if I want to identify, let's say child 2, let's say relative. No, this is not gonna help us. Okay, I think this should be okay. I'll go back. Okay, so we wanna identify this particular element, but what we're gonna do here is we'll give the XPath of this element and then we'll traverse ahead. Okay, with that we will able to understand. Now this is the link. If you remember, we had a special XPaths to identify a link, right? Not in US, find your local office. So what I'm gonna do, I'll just take find your local office, only this much. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to identify driver dot find element by dot. We need to first write the XPath to identify that link. How I'm gonna do that? Can you tell me? We have a various way with which we can identify a link, right? You can use contents, you can use any of the different techniques which we used. So here, which you feel we can use? But you don't have any attribute. You only have href, right? See this, you only have href, you don't have anything. You have outer displayed HTML, right? You have an HTML. So this one will not help because you don't have an attribute, right? This one will not help. Exactly. This one also will not help, right? Now, if you remember, this is the one which will help, right? Either this one or this one. So this is how, this is why I'm saying all the syntax you need to write it on paper and then put it in front of you, so that every time you decide, you match that, oh, will this help? No, right? And then now let's say we want to use text equal to display text, but here if I use text equal to display text, tomorrow if they use some other display text, then probably my not in US sales, instead of not in US, if they say outside US, then my text will break, correct? So I don't even want to use this one. So the best thing I can use is this one, right? So if I use this one, it's gonna solve my purpose. So directly copy, paste the syntax. Now just here I need to, I think I did some copy paste issue. Let me, okay, and then here I'll only copy find your local office. I think that should be unique. If you're confused that whatever text you are taking is not unique, the best way is do a control F on the page here, okay, and then copy paste that, and then you should only see one match here. So if you see the one, yeah, if you see that is one match, then probably you can use. But here if you get two matches, then that's the question, whether you want to increase that part, whatever is in contents, or some, basically to match only one result, right? So, and then once, okay, so till here we are able to identify that first link. Now what is the next thing? If you carefully observe what we need to do, we need to write following, right? And then exactly dash sibling, and then double colon, and then the tag name and an index of it. So what is the tag name here? A of 1, right? And then dot, what I want to do, click. Did you get this? Okay, so here this is why it is important. So we are trying to identify this particular element first, and then from here onwards we are going, I'm saying, okay, first you identify this. If you identify this, then you try to go ahead to the next one. Okay. They are the paragraph elements. Basically the P and P, this and this and this are siblings and not the A. Let's run this and see. Okay, let's run this and see whether they're gonna work. Okay, probably this will fail, but I just want to show you the error. Let me run this, because that element, ideally speaking, that element doesn't have a sibling. Yeah, it didn't work. Correct. Now we'll see, unable to locate, right? Because like I said, that element doesn't have a sibling. So whatever sibling it is trying to find, right, is saying no such element. You see this? It is saying no such element, because that particular A anchor doesn't have a sibling. So let me find some other example. If you have any website, let's go here. Let's go to Facebook. I need two siblings, in the same parent. It's kind of difficult to get an examples, but okay, I will make an examples ready for you in next session. Okay, so that, but you understood the what's the main purpose of finding and traveling ahead, right? So the next thing is, how do we travel back? So the way we travel ahead, we can also travel back, which is going one step back, like from the child to the parent, right? And for that, this is the syntax. So here in this case, so again a same example. Now we are saying this is the static element, right? So first and here in this case we have to write an XPath to identify this parent. So initially we were trying to identify this element, right? For which we used a follow sibling, but now we want to go back so that we can identify the parent. Now how do we do that? So first again the same story, try to identify the element and then type parent and then the parent tag name, right? If you do this, then you will able to go and do the action on the parent. Now in our example, if you try to do that, if you in this example, we identified this, right? Let me show you. And its parent is this p tag, right? And if from this p tag, if I try to go to sibling, it will come here. Is that right? And then from here I can come here. Do you get my point? So let me combine both of those examples, just because we don't have an example right in front of us now. Let's try to use both of them. Okay, so you're getting my point, right? What I'm trying to do, so first we'll try to go to P here using the parent, right? And then once we identify a parent, what we'll do a following sibling, which is this, and then from this sibling we'll come here, and then we'll try to click on it. Let's try that. So now here, before this, now I want to go to parent. So what is the syntax? Parent double colon and then a tag name, right? And in this case the tag name is P, right? And then forward slash. Are you getting it? Parent and double quotes and then the tag name. So now let me go back to code. Yeah, and then so here we are here now. Assume that we are one step ahead. Now from here we have to go follow sibling, which is first index of P, right? So this will continue follow sibling, but here instead of A it will be P of 1. Is that right? And after P of 1, what we want to do? A. Correct? The next element, the next tag is an anchor element, and then we want to click on it. Now this should work, I hope. Let's test this, okay? Yeah, I'll get some good examples so that we can work on only one syntax at a time. With that, now see it worked. See it clicked on that second link, right? So we combined both the examples in one XPath, but it's good practice, right? Now you understood how do we go back and how do we go ahead in a same example. Now this type of XPaths is generally considered as an advanced XPath knowledge. You may not get this right away in any straight tutorials, but the reason I'm teaching you is because this is the actual problem you're gonna face when you start working in your systems. And you should be very comfortable between how do we traverse ahead, multiple node ahead, how do we go back, and then all the different kind of combinations. Okay. Exactly. So this, I think this particular problem also gave a fantastic example for us to learn both of them in one go, right? Okay, cool. So I leave up to you to do a practice. Okay. The next important topic. Now this is related to using some methods in a WebDriver. So far we are only using locator mechanism, right? Drivers.find element and then either send keys or click. We haven't gone more than that because first that is the base where we wanted to get perfect, right? Now I think so far we have learned a lot of different syntaxes to identify XPaths, CSS with the different combinations. How do we go ahead, how do we go back, absolute XPath, what is relative XPaths, and all different sort of traverse mechanisms. Now the next thing we'll start exploring is how do we use different methods. I think getAttribute, getText, by name itself we should understand that what exactly its meaning, right? So getAttribute is basically the method which returns the value in a given attribute. So this is a perfect example. You have an input tag in front of you where it has an ID attribute. The value of ID is testing, the name attribute, a value attribute, and then there is a inner HTML or inner text. You can say the display text, and then the tag closure. So if you use driver.findElement by.id, and then here you define the ID testing, and then you say getAttribute. You want to getAttribute. Now you can define any of this, right? So you wanna check the getAttribute of name. So why you will use this? There will be a scenario where these attributes will be very dynamic. This particular attribute values will be dynamic. So you want to capture them. You will say, okay, get attribute of this, and then you will capture them and print it. Okay, let me show you. If you remember, this particular ID value was getting dynamic, right? See, this ID value was getting dynamic. So if I want to capture this particular ID value, what I'll do, so let's say name. So what I'll do, first I'll try to identify this element using name. So let me comment this, and let me comment this also. So here, let's try a new XPath using, method always starts from lowercase, getAttribute. Now here I'll say driver dot find element by dot. So what you want me to use? You can straight away use name, because this is what I'm trying to use, right? And then give the name, whatever name I have, and then dot, I'll try to use, not here. And then I'll say get attribute, right? What attribute I'm trying to get? ID. And then this is gonna return you the string. So I'll capture that in string, right? And then let me say test. I'm just getting test ID, and then equal to. And then let's try to print this. So control space to print, and then here I'll say printing ID value equal to plus control space to get immediate variable, and then append it, save it. Now if I run this, first it will try to identify that particular field, get the value of that particular attribute, right, and then print it. Similarly, if you want, just for your information, what we'll try to do, this area required, right? I think this is not the correct one. Let's take this one, the area, what it says. This looks like some, yeah, this looks like some dynamic, right? So we can also try to capture this one. Okay, so again the same thing I will do. I will use this. Oh, now here I no need to define, because I'm overwriting the value, and then this is the attribute. So we'll, instead of ID, now I want to capture the value of this attribute, right? And then again I will print. So here I'll say, again I will print it, and I will say printing the value of this particular attribute. Value equal to, okay. Let me run this. So get attribute is gonna be useful in lot of such cases where you wanna get the visible, hidden attribute values, Okay, so we didn't do any clicks, but now you can see that it has printed 075N. Oh, so here it didn't print any value. I don't know why. Let me check. Probably.
Oh, I think you just wait. The ARIA dash, right?
I don't think I missed it. Let me check. Go back. Maybe that's a dynamic one. May not have it in runtime. I don't know. Anyway.
Don't you want to use, since it has the name dash SNB.
This one?
Yeah, don't you want to use contain?
No, this is the attribute, and this is the value of that attribute. This is what we want to capture, you know.
Yeah, what's right next to it? You got dash.
Oh.
It looks like it's a long string.
Yeah.
Don't give it that, the whole thing. What is it?
It should be. Let me check here. This is what it loaded. Go to inspect path. Yeah, it is giving. See this? But anyway, that is not an appropriate example. If I just want to get a type, right, I think this should work. If I just want to capture the value of type attribute, so if I just give here as type, and then if I say I just want to print the value of type, I think this will work. Let me run this. So ID, this time we got a ID as 07 something. I think the next time it will be again a dynamic ID. Okay, loaded the page. That's it. Now you see here we got, right, type equal to text, and the ID value here this time it was a different value, BCEC, right? Okay, so I think this is what I wanted to explain. Yeah, the next one is the get text. No, the get text method, as name indicates, you know, it is gonna give you the text value. Now here in this case, sorry, not get attribute. Get text is gonna give the inner HTML, whatever is displayed on that particular element. What do you mean to say inner text is between the tags, right? Whatever the information you generally see on the page. So here this is the first name, right? So this is the first name is your inner text. Yeah, so here in this particular example, right, in this particular example, div
Some websites they just don't have those.
you can use the inner text for this class, you know. So this particular, yeah, so we can try that. Let's see. So here what we'll do is driver dot find element by dot probably the placeholder is not a right example because it may have a lot of placeholders. I'm definitely sure, right? This particular placeholder, because I think everywhere they will have that placeholder. If, let's try it, or okay, let's do one thing. Let's identify this one. Oh, sorry. We know how to identify this one, right? We'll identify this particular element using okay, this by dot name. We know how to identify the username. Let's go till this. We want XPath to be used, so again, sorry, dot find element by dot XPath in double quotes / and then this is the input tag. So let's say input first the tag and then attribute name right? Equal to in single quotes, sorry, come back. What is the name? Okay, this is the name, username. Go back here. Oh, where I returned something. Where it went? Oops. Okay. Find element by dot XPATH and in double quotes. Okay, forward slash. First is tag input. Then here we're gonna give at the rate name equal to single quotes this value, right? Okay, and then close this. If I wanna check, I'll simply copy this entire. I'll go back to Chrome. Here on the console, I'll do Control F and I'll paste it. And then here it is identifying, which means my XPath is correct, right? Now, once I'm on this XPath, I want to go and get text of this next, which is a sibling, right? This is a sibling, and to traverse to our next sibling, what we do? We do follow sibling and this particular, right? So here what I'll do, after this, I'll do forward slash follow sibling, correct? And then no forward slash. Here I'm gonna give it tag. What's the tag? I wanna go on a label, right? So I'll say, okay, go to the next follow sibling label, right? And then what's an index? 1, right? And then let me go back. Yeah, let's try this. And then here we will say which this closes by dot, and then he'll say, sorry, get text. Okay, and then this is the text we'll try to capture. So I'll say display text equal to, let's see, and then this display text I'll try to print it in the next line. Let's see if this works. So just to print, and then here I will say printing display text equal to, and then append it. Okay, let's run this. Let me close all these browsers. Okay, some more. And the last one. Okay, let's run this test. So here first we are identifying the username, and then using a following sibling we are going to a next label, sorry, next tag, and then we are trying to get perform the get text method on it, and let's see if that works for us. I'm just looking at here the execution. Once the execution is done, look into the console, or I can just minimize this. You can observe the console here. What happened? It's taking long time to load the page.
You closed it.
It didn't like that I closed all of the browsers.
Yeah, you took away the sibling.
I took them siblings. Okay, here it is. Okay, see, cool, it worked, right? Yeah. So printing display text equal to first name. So with this, what we did, I think we identified a name, and then we went to its sibling, and then from there, because we knew that if we try to do directly get text on this particular element, we may not get anything, right? Because from the structure, we could clearly see that there is nothing on the input as an outer HTML or the inner text, we can say. But if I go here, this is where the first element, that this one, if I want to identify. So in a functional testing, this is what we do, right? We want to make sure that this field is named correctly. or this field is named a first name or invoice, or whatever that field heading is, we want to identify or test that. So this is how you're gonna do the get text, and then you do assertions. You're gonna learn assertions in our upcoming session, right? There are different ways we use assertion, verify, all those things. Soon we're gonna learn all of them.
Can you integrate this into Earth? Is it possible, or
No, we can integrate it. So OpenScript, Oracle OpenScript, is purely built on top of Eclipse. The what we are doing right now is nothing different. All these methods, .getAttribute, .getText, they are also available in OpenScript.
Yeah.
And the only difference is the way the OpenScript identifies the page, the way we write XPaths there, that's different. Because that tool has a different library which is built in such a way that it works on Oracle application as well as a web application, and that's why we have a different mechanisms to write an XPath on that tool. But more of this knowledge is you can relate it with the OpenScript as well, right? It's nothing different. So that's why I always say that whatever tool you are learning, whatever automation tool you are learning, make sure you learn it from depth, from basics, so that it doesn't become difficult for you in future to upgrade to a new tool, because most of these tools are designed or developed on a kind of a similar principles. So exactly, there will be only little bit syntax differences and some tricks here and there, that's it. But the basic principle would remain same, that how do we identify, how do we traverse ahead, go back, or whatever different method we consume. Okay, so this
go back to the parent your slide deck slide.
This is the parent which we go back, and this is the one where we go ahead. Okay, and then in the next session we're gonna learn more about different elements. Okay, there is some more methods we're gonna learn, and we also gonna learn about assertions in our upcoming sessions, and there is also synchronization techniques which will target a couple of sessions from now. Okay, so yeah, so probably by this session I would say we are done with most of our locator techniques. Okay, we are done with the locator techniques. How do we identify elements using different techniques? There will be some more complex and kind of an extraordinary examples which we will learn in our future sessions, not now, but this is like 90% of it you will be dealing on a day-to-day basis. So very important to do the practice for all the different locator techniques we have discussed in last 3-4 sessions, right? With all the different syntaxes, into practice it.
Which one would be more robust than the other one?
I would means if you ask me personally, I always prefer XPaths and CSS. But yes, there are some people who also prefer writing simple using ID, name. Basically, it depends on your type of application. But yes, practically speaking, most of the applications you can handle it using XPaths and CSS. And I would suggest you to practice more those two locators techniques, because the other ones are pretty obvious, right? They are not that difficult. Just right click, get an ID, and then use it, get a name and use it. The main technique or the main tricks practice is needed to design XPaths, to design CSS. The regular expressions, yes, the regular expressions and custom ones, yes, exactly, the custom ones, like like this kind of examples, going ahead, coming back, then going ahead and coming back, and all these kind of different ways. Okay, so stay tuned, do a lot of practice. We have a lot of interesting stuff online. Okay, see you, yeah, bye bye.